The Barbell Sumo Deadlift. This is a great alternative to the conventional deadlift, as it's a little bit different when it comes to setup, and also if you are one of those people where you just can't get the conventional deadlift to work, the Sumo Deadlift tends to work a little bit better, and I'm going to tell you why as we go through this. So number one, a sumo stance allows you to add a little bit more external rotation to the hips. A lot of times when it comes to conventional deadlifts, where you have the legs right underneath your hips, one, you need enough hip flexion to get into the position and enough hip mobility to get into this end position for you to drive off the floor without any kind of compensation. So a lot of times when you get someone into a sumo position where the legs are a little bit wider, the toes are out, and the knees are tracking over the toes, you have a little bit more room for those hip sockets to kind of glide in a little bit easier. So that being said, you don't need to go super wide. Again, I would only recommend super wide stance for someone a little bit taller, but again, not everything has to be perfect. If you find a really, really wide stance works best, then by all means. But for most people that get into a sumo is maybe 3 to 4 inches wider than hip width. From here, I want the toes out to promote more hip external rotation, and as I drive down, my knees are going to track over the toes. The biggest mistake I see when people get into this position is they turn it into a squat where they dip their hips down. So again, this is trying to be more so like a hinge, so your hips need to be a little bit further out. The other thing too is where your hands go. My cue is when I get someone set up in their wide stance in their sumo, I get their hands down along their thighs, and we're going to slide down until we reach the bar. So now I have this tactile touch that every single repetition, I know exactly where my arms and legs are in relation to each other. So from here, I'm going to reach down and grip tight. Before I even lift, I kind of have a checklist. The big one is I want to ensure that my feet are rooted into the ground. The second one is I want to take a big belly breath. So if I imagine taking a deep breath here, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to try to create that safety belt, that lifting belt with my diaphragm to protect my spine, to create that spinal stability. From there, I'm going to hide my armpits. A big mistake that I see a lot of amateur lifters is they allow all this space to be shown. If I hide my armpit, now my lats are engaged a little bit tighter, and now I can drive in with that barbell and bend it in half compared to just having it out here. So if I don't hide my armpits away when I lift, the barbell is going to end up traveling forward, and anytime the barbell is too far forward, your fulcrum of the lift ends up becoming your low back and not your hamstrings and glutes. That's another amateur thing that I see a lot is people deadlift with a lot of space between their shins and the bar. The closer you are, the better it is, so now your hamstrings and glutes can really work. From there, as I'm pushing my feet and being rooted into the ground, that deep belly breath, I'm hiding my armpits, I'm squeezing the barbell as tight as possible. As I'm driving up, I'm pushing my feet out towards the outside of me. Even in a standing position, if you just stand there and push your feet out, you feel all of this stuff engage. A lot of times when people get into near maximal lifts, you'll end up seeing people kind of lean to their stronger side and kind of finish. But if we think of actively pushing out and getting all this super tight and strong, it's going to become more of a straight line up and then back down. Another thing that I see a lot is people not pushing into the ground with their feet. You want to think of an old school leg press machine. You are pushing the floor away from you. You are not lifting with your upper body. A lot of times people, as they deadlift, they will extend with their lumbar spine first and then their hips, whereas this is purely all hip extension, not lumbar and then hip. It's a bad habit that a lot of people get through. So if you put all those together into a kind of a checklist, your feet into the ground, you're pushing out, you're squeezing the barbell, you're hiding your armpits, you're taking that big belly breath in, you're driving up and then walking out at the top, and then your sumo barbell deadlift is going to look perfect, and you're going to save yourself a lot of headache when it comes to low back pain or any kind of other little aches and pains. So that is the Barbell Sumo Deadlift.